and welcome to the Motorsport Coaching Podcast, sponsored by Motivate Training and Management. This is a podcast where we talk to drivers and industry experts to help you maximize your performances on and off the track. Let's get started with today's show. Hi guys, and welcome to episode 30 of the Motorsport Coaching Podcast. I am your host, Belinda Risley, and today I am joined by rookie supercar driver Macaulay Jones. For those who don't know, he is the son of Brad Jones, racing car legend, but Macaulay is a legend in his own right, officially being promoted this year to the main game of the V8 Supercars. Macaulay is very interested into wellness of a driver. So today's episode, we talk about the paleo diet, his fitness regime, and also how he's gone from being full-time mechanic on his Super 2 car into a full-time driver, and what will that mean for him in 2019. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did. As you could hear, I could probably speak to Macaulay all day. There's so many aspects to the young man. And don't forget about, if you're looking to get some more ideas around your motorsport racing, especially around your fitness and wellness, please head over to our closed Facebook page, search Motorsport Fitness in Facebook. Come over and join us and get some free tips. Let's get started with today's show. Welcome. Welcome to the show, Macaulay.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to hear your story and about how you got to the main game. How old are you?
I'm 24.
So young, so young.
I feel like I'm not that young, but it's exciting times. It's been a long journey for sure.
That's right. So what age did you start racing?
I started at 12 in go-kart, so I would say it's relatively late compared to, what quite a lot of the guys started. You can start at the age of 7 now, so yeah, I guess 12 was a bit later than that.
And why was that delay? Was it because you just hadn't found the sport of karting, or was it because you were doing other interests?
To be honest, I don't really remember much of my life before that. It's kind of funny, really. I probably didn't have a huge interest in it. I was obviously around motorsport a decent amount, but not as much as what people think. It was hard for me because my dad was racing himself. He was running the team. It's not like you can bring your kid to work every day. So, when you're going away for a race meeting, he could never take me. And my mum, by the time I got to an age, she wasn't really going to many races. So, and when she did go to the races, she didn't want to have to look after a kid, which is, not the easiest thing to do over there. And she sort of had her own work and whatnot. So, yeah, I guess I never got into it until I got to an age where I tried some higher karts, and then I sort of said to Dad, "Hey, I want to give this a go," and we got an old go-kart, and away we went from there, really.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? Like, I'm sure people would just assume that you've been there your whole life, and you probably started racing when you were 4, and you got a special exemption. And so it's really interesting to hear that you didn't start until you were 12, and that's a great little story.
I mean, I actually, I probably started on motorbikes when I was about 4, and did that for a few years, and then that was on and off as my cousin raced. But other than that, like I never, I went to Bathurst. I could always remember doing that, but I never went to a heap of other rounds. And again, it just goes back to sort of my dad was racing, and he couldn't really look after a kid whilst doing that. And it sort of just naturally happened, which I think I wouldn't have changed that, to be honest. Like I think I don't really, like I said, I don't really remember much of my life from the age of 7 to 12 anyway. So I guess, sure, you would have had some experience, but I think by the time I got to age 12, I was a bit more mature and I was a bit more able to take in all the information anyway.
Yeah, and you've definitely achieved a lot in the last 12 years. Tell us a little bit about your career to date. So you started karting at 12, and then what was your next progression, to get to the main game? And congratulations again on 2019.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been like I said, a long journey to get to this point, and this was, I suppose it's been the long-term goal to sort of get into the Supercars Championship for me. I guess when I started go-karting, it never was the goal. It was just always to go racing and try and win on the kart weekends. And then I suppose after 6 years in karting and I guess my dad wasn't there too much with the karting as well. It was more, I actually had a mechanic, Tom Williamson. He was an engineer, mechanic, brother kind of thing. We sort of lived together for 4 years, and we traveled around the country and overseas as well. And he was a phenomenal part of my racing. I would not be where I am today without him. He taught me so much in life and in racing, and sort of gave me the work ethic that I have, I suppose. And And then, and then he was doing Formula Ford at a point there towards the end. And then I moved on to Formula Ford there. And that was at that time, that was the natural progression from karts to then go to Formula Ford and sort of jump straight into the Australian Championship. And then did that for 2 years until that sort of it was starting to die off a little bit, where the Australian series sort of was coming to an end and they were trying to bring in new series and whatnot. So yeah, and then we went to Super 2 after that, which was the development series at the time, but sort of had probably 8 months off racing once I finished Formula Ford, did the Toyota Racing Series, and then came back and then, had the 8-month break until we raced again.
And so how many years did you do in Super 2s?
So I finished my 4th year this year of Super 2.
And Macaulay, do you have any other siblings? Is it just you, or is there someone else sharing the love of motorsport behind the scenes?
No. I mean, I've got 2 sisters, but they cannot drive.
No?
For life with them.
And are they involved in the team or anything?
One of them is doing some reception work at the shop, doing a bit of the paperwork. She's now 30, I believe, and she only just got her license a year ago. So,
oh, really?
She's gotten to this point without driving. So, yeah, she definitely hasn't got the racing gene in her, for sure. And the other one's not much better.
Oh, that's really funny. See, I think people will be astounded to actually hear the stories, and I think people have this belief that life is a lot different.
Yeah, I think so, and that's why I try and paint the picture a little bit differently to what it's sort of all the expectation is. But I learn a lot more from probably Tom Williamson in my karting days than I did in my dad. I mean, when you're a kid, no one listens to their father. I mean, even if he is, an 8-time Australian champion in the sport, it's sort of all they know, yeah.
Exactly. And so you are very hands-on with the cars, and you have predominantly been so from day dot. What do you do every day, or what does a week or a day look like for you?
I've always been hands-on ever since a kid. I always liked doing things in my hands. So I left school after year 11 and then went straight into an apprenticeship as a mechanic. It's sort of, I couldn't sit around and do nothing, and I liked working on go-karts, Formula Fords. At the time I was working on Formula Fords, and then it was just got to that point where, we decided to do an apprenticeship. So been working behind the scenes at the race team in Albury for the last 6 years, I believe, 6-7 years. So I've always loved working on it. I always like knowing what the car is made of, how it's made, what it's got on it. I've always been involved with the setup of it. So I guess most days I'm in at the shop working on the cars, whether it's the Super 2 cars. I don't do much in the main series side of things. We sort of segregate the two just because, you try and keep the same people on the same cars to keep consistency and making sure that everything's running in check, where, everything's got a checklist and that person has this job to do. So just been doing that mostly.
Well, now that you have been promoted to the main game, what will your role look like now? Will you continue to work on the Super 2 cars, or will you just be focusing on your training, your sponsors?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't quite figured it all out yet, I don't think. I've had a few guys, a lot of the mechanics at work sort of say, so what are you doing next year? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm not someone that I like to keep occupied. So for me, I'm not 100% sure what it'll entail just yet. There'll be a lot more sponsorship side of things going on behind the scenes. Now that it's sort of, you do the step up, you're having twice as many races. So be able to work closer with the engineers. I think that's one good thing about being closer to the team is I've built that relationship with all the engineers that we have and all the mechanics there. So that's been really good for me, and to be able to spend a bit more time with them and go through things before the race meetings and after the race meetings, and just try and get all those little things ticked off and make sure that you're learning from either mistakes or things that may have got missed over the weekend, or just reviewing things to be able to get better. And I think I'll spend a lot more time doing that now that I'm able to, where in Super 2, you don't do very long races. So it's, there's a lot less to review than what there is in the main series stuff. And there's only half the amount of races. So for that, it's, you can do something else outside of it, where now it's a bit more full focused on being a race car driver and making sure that everything's in line.
And so coming with that new responsibility of being a main game driver, are you finding, or have you started to look at your training aspect, so your physical components of the racing? Like you just said, the races are now doubled, they're different timed events, there's different lengths and stuff. Has your physical training started to change yet, or will it be? Or
Well, I mean, I have thought about it a little bit. I mean, training is an aspect that I love. Always have loved being physical, and I guess ever since I sort of left school is when that side of the things changed for me. Like, when I remember going to a CAMS camp, I got invited to one of them, and I was a part of the CAMS Rising Star in Formula 4, which was a big program at the time. And we went to the AIS for, I think, a four-day camp there, and I used to eat terribly. Like, I remember going to school every day with $5.20, and I had a hot dog and 2 coffee scrolls every single day for about 4 years straight. And that's, and then I come home and make nachos, and I suppose, oh yeah, at the time, man, I don't know how I did it, but and then ever since that one weekend that I had at the AIS, it was like a switch for me. It just changed, and I started training, and my food it was a complete opposite. I haven't had a hot dog or a coffee scroll since. I don't eat processed things. I don't eat McDonald's. I don't eat Hungry Jack's. It's like, it was like a switch for me, and it was a decision that I made, and I went from there. And I guess moving into next year for my training, I do enough training as it is, to be honest. So, and having the wild cards this year sort of set me up for it. And I think the biggest thing will just be adapting to the car and the mental side of things, not so much the physical side of things. I mean, to be able to get through Darwin racing in the heat up there, I think that's some of the hardest conditions you can have. I think it's just going to be adapting to the different style of racing that it is instead of the DBS. So physically, I'm definitely doing some training. I mean, I'm always going to do training whether I'm racing or not. So that's just one part that I enjoy, and I enjoy that grind of that, I suppose. So yeah, not a whole lot is changing. I am starting to work with someone a bit closer than what I probably was, and that's just so I'm just ticking boxes a bit better than what I have been. I mean, I have some goals that I want to achieve, and for me, outside of the sport is what I want to achieve them, and I think I'm better off, I guess, getting some accountability through someone else, and also getting better at tapering for race meetings. It's not something that I've had to do too much with. I don't really struggle with the 20-lap races in Super 2. So I guess heading into weekends and recovery work will be a bit more on my mind this year.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of training do you do? Like you said, you love it. Are you doing weights? Are you bike riding, swimming, climbing?
Yeah, I do a bit of everything, to be honest. Probably at the moment more focused on strength work. Probably the last year being more focused on strength work. I'm a pretty light build. Always have been. I'm 65 kilos. I'd be, if not the lightest in the field, I would say, in supercars, which isn't necessarily a great thing, because I've always found like dealing with heat is an issue when you're quite small, and from what I've observed from people, even when they get out of the car, the leaner guys tend to struggle more than what some of the guys that are probably a bigger size. So I guess just being careful of that. And I do tend to do a fair bit of CrossFit style training, and mountain bike riding would probably be my two predominant things at the moment. I don't love swimming, so I don't tend to do that too much, but I don't, if it's in my program, I'll do it, but I'm not a huge fan of the water. I just don't do it. So
that's all right.
Yeah.
And
So
do you train every day, or is it 5 days a week? And do you do my body stuff? Do you do any Pilates or yoga or?
I've done a bit of yoga stuff. I stretch most days. I would say every second day at least I stretch. That for me is pretty important. I've got quite good mobility, and I think that's a very important part to just, one, winding down, and two, keeping on top of recovery. But as for training, I don't do it every day, just because I've learned over the time that you need to be recovering. If you're not recovering, you're just overdoing it. And I've learned a lot throughout my whole training stuff over the last 5-6 years. I've done some pretty stupid things with my training, and it was big setbacks. Like I've had an accident on a mountain bike because on Strava too much and cracked a rib, and that wasn't ideal. So that was in the middle of the season last year, which wasn't, so I learned a big lesson from that. I mean, it didn't really affect me in the car because we were on a 4-week break sort of thing, but I still felt it. and then it stopped my training for a while. You can't do anything with a busted rib. So yeah, you just learn little things and take it into account. And I think at the moment, I think there's a big push for fitness in the sport. And I think it's very important to have like a good base. But I also think it's probably more important to learn what the car and engineering sides of things. I think you can spend a lot, like for me, I probably spent at one point too much time training and not knowing the car enough. But then again, having the mechanic side of things for me allowed me to learn that a bit more than what's probably some other drivers do.
Can I ask, and don't answer if you're not allowed to tell me, but do you have certain restrictions on what outside activities you can and can't do? Like you just made that point about bike riding. Like, are you guys allowed to go jet skiing, or is there any clauses in your contracts to state, like obviously they don't want you out mountain bike, motocross riding or jet skiing or something like that, or is it a little bit more flexible, or is there some sort of a clause in contracts?
For my contract, not really. I mean, it's I guess he is the old man. He's a bit hesitant in some things. I'm pretty smart with the way I go about it, I suppose. Like I'm not going to go out and do something stupid. So like for me, I don't snowboard. It's in the middle of our season. It's not a good idea. I just need one thing to go wrong, and and as much as I would love to go and learn it, I made the decision not to because it's not a good idea. So for that, it's just about being a bit more self-aware. I mean, I know some teams do have contracts where they may not even be allowed to go-kart racing because, that can be a bit of an issue. But for me, I've had this argument with my dad about getting a motorbike recently, and he's well against it, and I'm sort of not too much against it because, I think I'm going to do it in a safer manner, but you can still go wrong. So I probably won't be going down that route. Yeah, you definitely got to be careful.
Thanks for that. I've always wondered that question. Now, Mac, I believe that you eat paleo, or I was going to say study, but that you prefer to eat the paleo way.
Yeah.
How have you found that, in any way, good or bad, affected your performance? Obviously, you do have the catering facility at the track. Tell us how paleo works for you.
Yeah, I guess, so it's my own version of paleo, and I think that's, like, I've never liked saying that I'm paleo, but that's the best way to explain it, I guess. So for me, it's just I tweak it to suit what I'm doing at the time. So I guess I just eat real food. Like, it's vegetables, meats, nuts, seeds, little sugar, like no processed foods, like at all. And I used to be a big fiend of, I was the complete opposite, like I said. But for me, I felt so much better changing up the way I eat, and it's what suited me. So I guess I don't eat any gluten, and I don't eat any dairy really. I can tolerate some dairy, but very small amounts. But I was getting really bad gut issues with gluten, and I found out after a little while of, like, I was getting stomach cramps in the morning. So if I did any exercise, I would start to get very dehydrated quickly. And once I cut out gluten for me, and I got some blood tests done, and I had early signs of celiac disease, and then I just cut it out, and I haven't eaten it since, pretty much, and not intentionally anyway. And then with dairy, I struggled with, like, milk. I just started getting rashes on my arms and stuff, and, like, quite heated. So I just cut it out, and any other foods that I react badly to, I cut out as well. And it's just, I sort of learned to adapt to that. And it's about being self-aware with that kind of thing.
And so what does a meal plan look like for you on a race day?
On a race, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty lucky with the catering side of things, although I do tend to cook my own food. But I generally eat the same thing every day at home and out at race meetings. I try and keep it the same. I don't like changing things, especially what I'm doing in training is what I want to do in the racing. So I guess I try and keep it the same in that aspect. But lunch is always a meat, whether it's a chicken, lamb, and sweet potato. And I have some vegetables, but I try and keep the volume a bit lower. Sometimes I will have rice, depending. Probably this year I'll probably have rice with a longer race, and then put oil, with some oils on it. And then, like, a dinner will be salmon, pretty much always salmon and sweet potato and vegetables. And then I generally have a smoothie at night time as well before I go to bed. I have a fast metabolism, so I tend to count calories a little bit throughout the day. And I don't need to count all the time now, just because I've done it for a long time now. So I know how much energy I burn throughout a day on a maintenance level, and I can sort of adjust that to what my goals are at the time. But for a race meeting, I make sure I eat a lot of food. Like I think that's something that people don't do is eat enough. I think people underestimate how much you burn throughout a race meeting, and so that's, I'm not there to lose weight. So at the time, I don't really care how much I'm eating. I just make sure that I have a minimum amount I eat, and if I go over that, I'm okay with that sort of thing. But I make sure that I have a minimum level amount.
And breakfast, what do you do for breakfast?
Again, it'd probably be a smoothie or probably eggs at a race meeting because someone else cooks them for me. So just egg, bacon, and avocado, and sometimes sweet potato, and fruit, really.
And then do you just snack on nuts? And
I'm very lucky in that aspect with Blue Dinosaur. Bit of a shameless plug, really, but I actually eat that many bars. It's not funny. So I eat a lot of them throughout the day.
They're yummy.
Yeah, and the pea chocolate even, like that's which is like a pre-workout style, but it's the guys that created that product have got a lot of backing into it, and there's a lot of science that they've put into it to create the product, and it is very good for, it's got a bit of caffeine, which I like, and it's a very small dosage, and I'd rather have a chocolate form than have a powdered form of pre-workout. So
why not? Who doesn't love chocolate?
Exactly.
And so, do you take any supplements?
I've never been huge. I have protein powder, which I change up what it is all the time. But I do some magnesium. I do vitamin D in winter. I don't do it in summer. I get outside enough. Some magnesium. I do some electrolyte drinks on a more enduro style. So don't tend to do it on Super 2 weekend unless it's very hot. But other than that, not really. And I've played around with a bit of BCAAs, and again, it'll change up a little bit this year with longer races, and also backing the longer races up from Saturday to Sunday is a bit more important now for me. So I will implement some things, but I'm not huge into supplements.
No, it's not.
So
athletes, it gets to a point, maybe right. Maybe around about your age now, around about early 20s, when it's a great idea to start looking into supplements, but we certainly don't recommend them for the junior athletes. Now, Mac, you just
I think probably an electrolyte thing for go-karting stuff, I think that would be important. But I think again, just eating. I think again, people can underestimate how much you're eating. So instead of, you need to eat throughout the day, where sometimes I can remember in go-karting, it wouldn't eat through the day and I'd have a massive meal at night. But I think it's probably more important to spread it out a bit over the day and just keep fueled.
I agree 100%. Because that's what food is, isn't it? Food is fuel.
Yeah, exactly. And I think so. And it doesn't mean that just because you have less access to better foods. Even for travel now, for me, that's an important thing to be just packing foods, because if I don't have access to the foods that I trust or that I don't, if I don't eat them, then I won't eat.
Yeah.
I've done trips overseas where I've had 2-day fasts and whatnot because I don't want the food that they've got on offer. So and I'm okay with that. Other people are a bit weird about it, me not eating around them, but I'm 100% fine with that. If there's no food that I'm not comfortable eating, I won't eat it, and I'm all good with that. So I know I can do that. So it's just, but it can be quite foreign. It's not ideal. But now I just I take food most places I go, whether it's protein powder and
Blue Dinosaur.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't go anywhere without them.
So Mac, you sound like obviously going from your coffee scrolls to your way of eating. It was, like you said, that one weekend that really changed your mindset around racing and just your own health and well-being. So it sounds like you're mentally quite strong. Do you do much mental preparation at it?
Yeah, I definitely have done a lot over the years. I think, and like you say, that's how I sort of do things. Though it's if I don't half-ass things. I guess if I'm going in, I go all in. Whether that's my motorsport, my training, and my food, which is not much else is in my life, I suppose. So it's those things are in full focus for me. So yeah, for me that is easy. For a lot of people, that's not easy to give something up. But if if I have a reason to why I'm giving something up, then it's easy for me. You know, if someone was to tell me that, you know, I'd be a better race car driver and I could only train twice a week, but it made me a better race car driver, then I'd train twice a week. You know, but I just, you know, I wake up every day and I've got one goal and I work towards that. So most of the things align with that, I guess. So.
And like, do you have a vision board, or do you journal, or do you, you know, have any sort of like bigger picture out there that you're sharing with everybody to get you into the same?
Yeah, I guess so. As for like journaling, I've played around with that a little bit over the last couple of years, and I definitely do a bit of that. I like a daily gratitude part. So just 3 things that you're grateful for the day, and it can be pointless things, and it can be bigger things. So you know, you could be grateful for the race team that we have in Albury, or I could be grateful for the coffee that I had this morning or whatnot. So. And I like doing that because it just sets the day up a little bit nicer. And I'm a big list person. I like to write down what I've got to do. So I do a lot of visualization as well, especially in the middle of the season. Float tanks. I've played around a bit with float tanks as well, which I quite like. I don't like doing long sessions in the float tank because I find I'd rather just do a half an hour one and I run through the weekend or what's sort of going on and where I'm going with the track and everything. So visualization's probably been a big thing for me, and I like to just read books. Like I said, they all sort of align. So whether it aligns with my training and my racing, I tend to do that a fair bit as well. So I've read a fair few books over the few years.
Can you recommend one? It's really like changed your...
I think Obstacle is the Way. That was by Ryan Holiday. That one was a really good one for me. That sort of, you know, taught me that it's just like, okay, if something goes wrong, okay, this is the new path. And it's just, you know, and it's, you know, everything in life, it's a bit of a journey. So you've got to be a bit more adaptable to things. And I think that helped me, especially like heading into this year. I think that was very challenging. We sort of came up against it at times. So that's sort of just like, all right, this has happened. What's next? And we'll move around that. And going from that, I think, book by Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. That's sort of, it's a bit of religious-y, but which I'm not religious. I have nothing against it. It's not how I've sort of been brought up, I guess. But I took a lot of things away from that, and it's about like not reacting to situations. For me, is what I took away from that. It's kind of like being a bit more clear and self-aware about situations, and you know, whether you're in traffic and you're driving to the shops and you're getting frustrated with the idiot that's driving in front of you. You know, it's like sort of not reacting to that. So, because at the end of the day, it just burns your own energy up, and I don't have time to waste on what other people are doing. So,
that sounds awesome. I will make sure I put those links to the show. So thanks for those recommendations. And do you have a specific saying to yourself, any type of mantra, or is it just all of that self-belief going through your head?
I mean, it's not all self-belief. We all have doubts. And I think that's something that's going around with, like, I think social media these days sort of paints a bit of a it's all good picture, but, you know, and I try and be real with mine. I mean, not every day is a good day. I mean, I had a training day yesterday. I didn't train until the afternoon. It was 4:00 in the afternoon. I went to the running track. And I had 6 sets of 800 meters, and I did 4 sets, and I was cooked. Like, it was, you know, 33 degrees. It was, you know, and it's just, and I wasn't feeling it at the time. And for me to do an extra 2 sets, yeah, I could have done them. Absolutely. Mentally could have done them. Would it have been productive? No. So it's sort of like listening to yourself and just being a bit more on top of that. So I think, you know, not every day is a great day, but you know, I'm always working towards the one goal. So I guess you've got to be a bit more adaptive to it.
So your goal comes true in Adelaide.
Oh, sorry. But as a mantra?
Yep.
I don't really have like a set mantra, I suppose. I've got a few things that it's like hold the standard. Like for me, like I set a standard for myself and I hold it. So whether that's, you know, I guess that's with my training, or if it's with the mechanicking work, it's especially the mechanicking work, even it's like I hold a standard. It's like I want it to be the best, and I don't really want to settle for something. So if you know, door gaps aren't great, then you know, we fix them, sort of thing. And you're holding that standard. So I've always liked that, and always like nobody cares, train harder. So when you're I guess when you're having a shitty session, it's, no, at the end of the day, it's like I'm the person that's driving my goals, and it's not that nobody does care. It's just that at the time of suffering, it's like only you care and you can get yourself through it.
So with your dream coming true in a couple of months, February the 28th, have you been doing, or will you do any sort of mind preparation around that race, or just suck it up?
Yeah, I mean, I've already started, I suppose. I started once I found out, I guess. It's a big step up, and I think people underestimate the step up that it is. So I guess I've been lucky with the wild cards to sort of get a bit of a feel for it, and also being around the team for so long now that I get how hard it is, and it varies from weekend to weekend about how the results go. So I've definitely started preparing myself, whether it's looking at footage of Adelaide and watching some racing. It's trying to get through the first lap it's very difficult in the sport. So, you need to try and get through that first lap cleanly and qualify better, which is something that I'm, trying to work out how we can prepare better for that. And qualifying is very important in this sport. So, just trying to work out little things like that and getting my head around, who you're racing with. So I'm racing against different people that some of them I haven't really raced against. Sure, we've done enduros at the same time, but I guess one-on-one, you haven't really raced with some of these guys. So getting that all, just preparing myself for that and the expectations that you set for yourself, and trying not to, try and be realistic with that. And I've got a lot of support around me with my engineers. They're very helpful for me, and they believe in me, and I believe in them. So that's an important part as well.
Yeah, and I was just listening to you, and I wasn't ready for a question. I was like,
That's all right. Yeah, you're also good.
So I was going to ask, do you have a test day before the big race, or are you all out?
Yeah, we'll have a rookie day, and I'll have we'll have the supercars test day, which I believe is at Phillip Island as well.
In January.
So, that's in February.
Very
yeah.
So one of the big things that you do really well, but the other drivers I haven't seen done quite as well, is your YouTube account. Do you want to tell me a bit about everyone, what you do on there, what kind of content, how often you post on there and things like that, what you post?
Yeah, I guess that's a new thing for me, and I've just been trying to work out it. I actually quite enjoy the whole video editing and creating the videos. I guess it's a lot behind the scenes. We're sort of restricted with what you're actually allowed to film at a race meeting, so that can be quite difficult. But try and keep a lot of the behind the scenes. I guess what drove me towards it was, one, I wanted to get better at speaking, be a bit more comfortable in front of talking in front of a camera, or just coming up with what you wanted to say and getting your message across a bit better. And as well as, I got sick of people asking what we do during the week. I think it's a big underestimated part of the sport. We have 47 full-time workers in Albury, and a lot of the people were like, oh, well, what do they do? And it's, and I wanted to showcase that a bit better, because I think that is something that is a huge part. Like, this is a huge team sport, but I guess a driver is highlighted quite a lot. But we have, 9 engineers, we have a paint shop, we have a fabrication machinist, we have mechanics, we have receptionists, sub-assembly. There's so many other factors involved in the whole sport. And I'm in a very lucky position where my dad owns the team, so I can showcase what goes through it, because I think a lot of people don't see what even Brad does in for the sport and for the team. I think he's stressed all the time, and he's always thinking about how to either find sponsorship or make cars faster, or getting the right people, or managing people, and the whole business side of that. So I guess I just want to showcase a bit better what the sport is about, and also my journey up to that point.
And do you call Brad a dad, or Brad, or something else at work?
Probably call him boss, actually. So I don't really call him dad around the shop. Not that I have a problem with it. I sort of got out of the habit of that, and it's just mostly boss, and he'll always answer me to boss anyway. So.
And then when you come home?
Oh, I don't know, a bit of both, I suppose. It depends how distracted he is.
Yeah.
So at first it's boss, and if he doesn't answer me because he's on his phone or something, then it's like, all right, Dad, oi, what are you doing? So hard to get his attention sometimes. He's getting old.
He's very busy. I think what
Yes, he's busy. He's got a lot going on.
Yeah. And do you have a nickname in the pits or at work?
Not really. It's generally just Mac. I think it's pretty standard because it's kind of in my name, really. My cousin's Jonesy, so I've never been a Jonesy.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, not really.
Not really? It's all right.
No.
So, Macca, I put a post up today on our close Motorsport Fitness page as I knew today's podcast was being around wellness. And so some of the questions that come through was, so Matt has asked, how did you mentally reset yourself after a couple of the Super 2 races this year when you're so close to winning? So Townsville was a prime example, and a mechanical failure occurred on his second Super 2 car and DNF'd the race. So Matt is trying to work on this mindset with his boys on how to reset their headspace after each heat. So they currently race karts. So he's wanting some information around that, regardless of the income of the previous heat event.
Yeah, this is something that I've definitely had to work on a lot this year. And for me this year, it's actually gotten a lot better. I think I learned a lot from 2017 and heading into this year as I was trying to work on consistency and just keeping at it throughout weekends. So to have Townsville happen, that was a big one for me, and I'm really proud of the way that the whole team even took that, and I was very happy with how I took that as well. Like I think it was very hard for me, especially the Sunday, but after the Saturday, I think for me, we sort of, I was pretty devastated at the time. I took a couple of deep breaths and then I went and chatted to my engineer after the race and my mechanics as well. And I said, all right, well, there's two ways you can react to this. You can react negatively or you can react in a bit more positively. And I guess, and I said to them, I was like, okay, we can only do one thing today, and that is get better for tomorrow. And we'll just come back stronger tomorrow. And I believe that we did come back stronger the next day. I felt more comfortable in the race, and then that sort of happened again. And it was like, that was pretty heart-wrenching at the time. But, I sort of just looked at the weekend and went, you know what, okay, we didn't get the result, but we were there and we have potential. And as much as I wanted the result, because, we all want to win, and that was the whole reason we went there. But, and to be that close was pretty hard. But I guess I took the positives away and I looked at the negatives. We learned from the negatives and that damper problem, that will never happen again. So we make sure that won't happen again. And we just tick those boxes and you go along with the journey and it's just learn from the mistakes and I'm a better person. I'm a better driver from it, whether we won or not. So, we come into Bathurst and that was a hard one as well, but we did everything we could. And yeah, you just got to review it and go along with the journey of it sometimes.
Yeah. So just building on that loss and just analyzing what went wrong, you've rectified it.
Yeah.
And then
and like I said, I was very proud of the way that the whole team came back on the Sunday. And again, we were very strong on the Sunday. So for us to do that is a bit of a testament to how we took our approach to it. And it was like, okay, well, we've just had this crap happen. Let's come back stronger tomorrow, So, and then at the end of the day, that's all we can do. And we're just doing our best.
And a great job that you are.
Thank you.
So, Macca, Leanne has asked, do you have any rituals before a race or wear certain piece of clothing?
No, not really. I sort of got away from that. In karting, I like to get in from one side of the go-kart and same in Formula Ford a little bit, but sort of got away from doing that because there's a lot of variables, especially like once you get to supercars, there's a bit more, like sometimes you're getting out on the grid and your routine gets a bit stuffed that way. So I sort of try and limit myself from having superstitions in that way. So I don't really have many of them, but sometimes I do have a bit of a routine where I have different routines, but I have a few of them. And it's just depending on how I feel on the day. So if I'm feeling a bit more anxious, sometimes I'll listen to music to calm myself down, or sometimes I need to warm up just to get going a bit better, or it's just about, I guess, where I feel at the time to what I need to be. If I'm heading into qualifying, I'm okay with being a bit more G'd up than what I don't want to be too calm. But heading into a Bathurst as an enduro stuff. Like I want to be a bit more calmer because you got to tick the boxes more. Where a qualifying session is like, all right, we're just going out there. You go as hard as you can.
So, Matt, do you like listen to music to get you pumped up before a race or a qualifying session like that? Or how do you get pumped up?
I guess I just run things through my head. Yeah, I don't know. And I just, just remember why you're doing it. So I just want to win. So, try and remind yourself of that. Sometimes I listen to music, but again, I'm very adaptable to what I want to be doing. Just being self-aware of where you're at, I guess, and trying to get to that same spot every time.
Fantastic. Well, Leanna has also asked, how did you feel being invited as the wildcard driver at Winton?
Yeah, I really like the idea of the wild cards. I think it's awesome. I think with the Super 2 now, we get a lot of safety car laps, which is quite frustrating. And you sort of do 20-lap races where the main guys are doing 75-lap races each day. And I think that's a huge difference. There's no pit stops in Super 2, and there's a lot more variables going on. So the wild cards for me has been an awesome initiative. Like I think it's been so good for it, and I think hopefully they get more in the future as well. So just to be able to learn.
Yesterday that they're going to do more in 2019.
Yeah, I did read that. I think they were planning to do 2 to 4, I believe. So that would be really cool for the guys jumping in, and it is a very expensive and it's a very tough, it's a very hard way to do it. But for me it was awesome experience to do them, and then to sort of have Darwin and Taylor Bend this year has been really good.
Now, I'm not sure if you're going to know the answer to this question, but Leanne has asked, how young were you when you got your first sponsor? And who was it and how did you get it?
I guess for me, sponsorship's a lot about relationships. It's building rapport with the people. So as for first sponsors, I had a few in go-karting where like I had some go-kart brands like DPE, Arrow Karts, like they were a big supporter of mine in go-karting, and I guess most of them stemmed from my dad at the time, and I think that's sort of how that does work at that point. But for me, sponsorship's a lot about relationships. So, most of the sponsors that I have now has been built over a relationship over a few years, and whether the sponsorship builds up like that or some of them have stayed the same sort of amount and level, but I've kept the relationship going with that and try and give back as much as I can to them.
And Macca, do you feel any pressure now driving under Dad, having that name? Do you feel that you've got more expectation to live up to? Or how are you approaching the new year?
Not really. I guess I've had this question asked a lot over the years, and I guess it changes at different points in your career. But in go-karts, yeah. I mean, I worried probably at the start a little bit that people would sort of go, oh, well, he's only in it for because of his dad. But I sort of, I sat down and thought about it, and you know what? I'm here because I want to be here, and I'm here because I've worked towards this point for a long time now. And I guess being with sort of the third car there with Tim Blanchard and the Cool Drive racing side of things, it's kind of segregated a little bit as it's under under the Cool Drive license, and it's sort of segregated in the media that way. It's not in the shop at all. It's not a third car in that way, but it's it's under the Cool Drive. It's not necessarily under the Brad Jones Racing banner, I guess, even if it is out of the same shop. So that's probably helped that a little bit. But I don't really have any pressure from him. He's got my support. He's probably one of my best friends. So we're very honest and real with each other. And if he thinks I'm doing something wrong, he'll tell me. And that is very grounding for me, which is awesome. I remember I had one point this year where I was sort of talking to him about something and something wasn't quite going my way. I can't even remember what it was, but he just said, all right, well, you need to suck it up. And I sort of like stopped and I looked at him and I was like, yeah, you're right. And it's sort of, okay. So he's very honest and I like that about him. And it's, I wouldn't want to go racing any other way without him.
Thank you so much for your time today, Macca. You've certainly given us, shared lots of your knowledge. And I really think that the listeners are going to appreciate hearing the inside story of your career to date. Do you have any recommendations for those competitors aspiring to get to the main game? I think you've given heaps already about being focused and, being serious and looking at nutrition, looking at fitness, all the mental preparation and goal setting. Do you have any other things to add to that?
I guess you just got to stick with it and make sure that you're going along with the journey. It won't all go to plan, but be adaptable. And I think that's a big thing. It's just, some days, some weekends you're going to have a crap weekend, but you need to make the most out of those weekends anyway. And at the end of the day, like as well, we're racing go-karts, we're racing cars. It's fun. Like you gotta hang on to that as well. So you can't forget that. It's, there's a lot worse that we could be doing. So, absolutely. I love the sport and I love a lot of the aspects involved in it. So, it's all a part of it and just try and learn as much as you can. And I enjoy talking about it. It's obviously a huge passion of mine. And I'm involved in the sport in many different ways. So, and I have been for a long time now. So yeah. And if anyone needs any help and advice, like feel free to send me a message. I think that's one big thing is reach out to people, and sometimes they won't reply, sometimes they will, and try and learn from as many people as you can.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll put Macaulay's details in the show notes today. I'd probably love to have you back onto the show maybe halfway through next year so you can tell us how you've been growing the first couple of months and rounds, and we'll have some stats to date. Yeah. And you can tell us like what's the first couple of months of being the main game and the type of differences from Super 2 to the main game that you've encountered as a driver and from a team perspective. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to talk about that. And again, I'll try and do some of that stuff on like the YouTube channel as well, just keeping updated with that and showing my journey through it and my experiences. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, last question. What is your favorite racetrack and why?
Every time I get asked this, we just count Bathurst because that's sort of a given, I think, in Australia. So I've always been a huge fan of street circuits. I've always liked Adelaide, but I've always loved Townsville as a street circuit. So that's probably one of my favourites for sure, I think. But I mean, most street circuits I've always liked. Definitely. Newcastle to drive around was insane as well.
Really?
It's cool. Yeah, not the greatest racing track. It's quite very difficult to pass, but can be a lot of follow the leader. But as a driving track, very fun.
Well, that's the first vote for Townsville, so that's exciting.
Yeah, a bit different, but yeah, I like it.
No, that's great. Thank you very much for that. Well, again, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. As I said, I feel like I could talk for hours about all different aspects of the racing, but I appreciate your time. And again, we'll have you on about halfway through next year and we can discuss what's been happening. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone for listening to this week's show. I really hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. Now, remember, all the show notes with the links and the specials mentioned in today's show are available over at motivatetraining.com.au. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could head to iTunes or Stitcher, type in Motorsport Coaching, subscribe, and leave us a review. Each week, I'll read them out and you'll go into monthly draw to win a fantastic prize. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at motivatetraining.com.au or head over to our Facebook page at Motivate to Tea. Until next time, take care.